All right, let's jump into the first topic for tonight. As I mentioned earlier today, the House of Representatives voted 273 to 147 to pass a bill that reauthorizes and does provide some reform to Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, also known as FISA. Of course, this is the provision that governs how, use that word loosely, but it governs how federal agencies can collect and use data. And what we have seen, and this is why I use the word loosely, the FBI and other federal agencies have abused that power and in many ways have squandered public trust. And conservatives in the House have pushed for reforms in the final piece of legislation. So what made it through? What did not make it through? Joining me now to discuss this and much more is Congressman Andy Harris. He serves on the House Appropriations Committee, is also a member of the GOP Doctors Caucus and is co-chair of the House Pro-Life Caucus. He represents the 1st Congressional District of Maryland. Dr. Harris, always great to have you on the program. Welcome back.
Sure, good to be with you, Jody.
All right, so let's talk FISA. Can you tell us what unfolded today?
Well, it was a pretty interesting day. We started the day with the debate on the bill and 6 different amendments to the bill. The most important amendment probably was the one, and the most controversial was the one that would allow, or I should say would require the federal government, if they detect something in one of these foreign intelligence surveillance data gathering, if they detect something that involves a U.S. Or a person on U.S. soil, it could be a citizen or anyone here in the U.S., it would require them to go get a warrant to look at that data. They can look at the data, or they look at the information on the foreigner, the overseas person, without again, obtaining a specific second warrant, but they would need a special warrant or warrant, really, to look at data on the American with whom that person is communicating.
And that was an extremely close vote. Tell us about that.
That's right. It actually failed on a tie. There was 212 to 212, as close as you can get. And because it was a tie, the amendment failed. We went on to add a couple of other amendments, some amendments that I think were probably expansive of the ability of the federal government to collect data, including collecting data on individuals in the Mexican cartels who may be drug smuggling. And one of the other controversial aspects is to expand the ability to collect data from a public Wi-Fi place. And that's, I think there was some concern about that. What we did to help mitigate the concern is to take the expiration date, instead of 5 years from now, to make it 2 years from now, so that we get to, in what we hope is a second Trump presidency, we get to revisit the use of this foreign intelligence surveillance ability by the federal government.
Well, that's probably the best thing that came of it, is from the perspective of those of us that are so concerned of the ability of the government to spy on U.S. citizens. So this will expire in 2 years instead of 5.
That's right, and I was one of the people who pushed that idea, the idea that if we're going to get a bill that we think is not perfect or not close enough to good, then we should not make it go 5 years. We should revisit this in a couple of years. And again, one part of the bill that was good is we actually put penalties on the FBI if they do these searches on Americans that they shouldn't be doing. But again, we're in 2 years, we get to revisit it, see if the reforms we put in place were adequate, and if not, we get to change it.
Okay, well, some silver lining there. That's good news. Certainly must be some accountability and some oversight of the FBI and other agencies in their use of that. This has obviously been a huge topic this week. You serve, obviously, on the Appropriations Committee, which actually this week heard testimony from FBI Director Christopher Wray, who talked about looming threats as a backdrop. In fact, I want to show this real quick clip. Clip number 1, please.
Our most immediate concern has been that individuals or small groups will draw some kind of twisted inspiration from the events in the Middle East to carry out attacks here at home. But now, increasingly concerning, is the potential for a coordinated attack here in the homeland, akin to the ISIS-K attack we saw at the Russia concert hall
All right, so he's talking about some serious potential threats that are here in the U.S. right now. How do you think that testimony influenced people on the legislation today?
Well, I have to tell you, I do believe that people are worried. That's only one aspect of that threat. The other aspect of that, of course, is that we have released probably hundreds of potential terrorists into the United States across our southern border. So I think on the one hand, it reinforces the fact that we do need to collect intelligence on foreign bad actors. But on the other hand, we need to make sure that we're not letting foreign bad actors into our country. And that's what I'm afraid where we're falling flat recently.
Yeah, well, listen, thank you for that update, Congressman Harris. This is an issue that's a huge concern to a lot of people, and we're glad that there is some degree of reforms and certainly the ability to come back in 2 years and make some significant changes in this. That's certainly good news in the long term, but a lot of great concern still remains. If I can, let me switch some topics on you. Protecting life has yet again emerged throughout most of the week. You're, of course, the co-chair of the House Pro-Life Caucus, and pro-life advocates may not always agree on strategy, but we can certainly agree that the Democrats are the extreme ones when it comes to the life issue, and they need to be called out for that. They just simply want to pass at the federal level the misnamed Women's Health Protection Act. Your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, Joe, it only protects you if you're female and you're not the fetus. Obviously, if you're the fetus and you're a female, you're certainly not protected by their act. Because what their act does is it allows abortion for any reason whatsoever up until birth, the moment of birth. And that, of course, is an exceedingly extreme position. There is no way that should be the position of the federal government. And again, what we've done is we've allowed this issue to go back into the states. We've allowed some states to take positions. Again, that's the proper way. That's what Roe v. Wade did. Overturning Roe v. Wade allowed this issue to go to representatives of the people, not judges making this decision, but actually legislatures. And I guess, again, the pro-abortion people are unhappy with giving the legislatures that right.
Well, you bring up the main point, and I want people to hear this and grasp it. It is the extreme position of the left. As you said, they literally want to provide abortion all the way up to the moment of birth. That is as extreme as it can possibly get, and now they're trying to distract the public from understanding their position. In fact, the vice president is in Arizona today, where earlier in the week that state Supreme Court restored some pro-life legislation. But don't you think it's really the strategy of the left right now to do everything they can to distract from their extreme abortion positions?
Well, of course, that's right. And what you're seeing is in some of the referendums that are occurring around the country where they're attempting to enshrine these things into state constitutions, is I hope people read these very, very carefully, because in some cases what they're doing is they're literally enshrining in their state's constitutions the ability to abort a baby up until the moment of birth for any reason, sex selection, any reason whatsoever, which is an exceedingly extreme position and not consistent with the majority of what Americans believe. There are a very small minority of Americans believe that you should have the right to kill that baby in the third trimester for any reason.
And they are masters at accusing others of what they themselves are guilty of. And in this case, they are the extreme ones. Congressman Andy Harris of Maryland, thank you so much for joining us on Washington Watch. Always great to have you, my friend.